Cimo, help! Magic is on fire! Everything's dying! Everything's banned! We don't know how to react to bans like this! And I hear Yu-Gi-Oh! Does. I had to call in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player.
I was not expecting that intro. That startled me, actually. But that was good. That was a good way to get people's attention.
No, this is how I feel. This is just honest venting into the microphone. We need it, okay? Here's what happened. We are a couple days removed. We're 2 days removed from the biggest ban announcement in years, and it's for Magic's most popular format, Commander, and people are losing their minds. They're losing their minds on the Reddit. They're losing their minds on the X. They're losing their minds in the comment section. People are in pain. You guys, Yu-Gi-Oh! Uses the ban list to curate the format. I thought you might have a unique perspective on this.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen on Twitter, I've seen everyone just losing their minds from what it seems like. And as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, you know, I'm kind of thinking of just like the meme of like the guy with the noose around his neck, like, oh, first time? I don't know. Maybe it's a lot worse than it seems from a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player's perspective, but walk me through it.
All right. So it's, first of all, context. I think it's been like 5 years since a ban announcement, and the typical ban announcement in Commander is like one card that everybody had their eyes on gets banned. Okay. Maybe one or two cards get unbanned. I think the last announcement was like 2 cards getting unbanned and some language about we're keeping an eye on cards such and such, right?
So they never update this format. You said 5 years.
Yeah, never. That's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Perspective, is like they never update it. But yeah, kind of.
Okay.
We update our format by printing more cards.
Well, I guess that does it. Yeah. Well, we do too, but we just ban them a few months later. But anyway.
Well, when it comes to Commander is literally getting hundreds of cards every month. Every month for the last 4 years. Yeah, it is insane. And now some have been banned, and the financial ramifications are huge. This is arguably the most expensive ban in MTG history across formats. Like, it's wild. People are losing it, dude. So you have a photographic memory
of sorts.
Yep. And you've been on Twitter. You've stuck your head out of the basement and noticed a few things. So what we're going to do today is I've hidden the art and the names on some cards, and I'm just going to show you their text and tell you their cost. You audience members will get the card on screen, but Cimo can't see that. You're going to tell me if you think this card got banned. I've got 7 cards. 3 were banned, 4 were not banned. Okay. Also, you already heard about Nadu. I know we talked about this just a second ago. Mm-hmm. You know that Nadu got banned. So let's do a little react there before I have you guess if other cards got banned. So this card, we talked about this before, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I will say, I think the funniest part about this getting banned in Commander, because if I recall from reading the little like description of why they like banned some of these things, didn't they make the adjustments to this card for Commander and now it's banned in Commander? Like,
dude. Did you have to come right with the salt in the wound? Like,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
If it makes you feel better, laughing at us. They're laughing at us.
No. If it makes you feel better, at least your company explains why they banned cards. Our company just puts out a list and they're like, "Have fun." That's all we get. We get. Yeah, so you guys, I feel like you guys are, I've said it before, you guys are so spoiled compared to us. But yes, Nadu, we know this is banned. This is hilarious, though, I will say.
Yep, Nadu's last minute changes were due to... Nadu was created intentionally to be a strong Commander card. The last minute changes to Nadu that did not get play tested and resulted in its broken form were due to complaints from Commander players. We'll call them concerns from Commander players who got to play test the card early. So the new Nadu was changed, was not tested, came out, busted freaking everything, and now is banned in Commander. Do you think that it should be banned in Commander? Do you think the effect is that good?
So, from my understanding, I did after our video where I first learned about this card. I went and like watched some of like the videos at like showing off combos in like the tournament settings and stuff, and like why this card is banned. And it seemed like to me that it was really just like one player taking like a 20-minute turn to actually like win the game, even though it was kind of it was kind of preordained, right? It's not like but they had to play through the actions essentially. And so for anyone who's not familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, for context, CGB, you and I have not gotten to this part in our series of videos on my channel, but if you ever want to know what modern Yu-Gi-Oh is like, imagine two people playing Nadu against each other. But the difference is we have many zero-cost things that can interact with the Nadu player to like stop them from doing the crazy stuff. So that's how ridiculous Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten in its modern age. Not that might incentivize anyone to want to play the game based on how much everyone hated this card, from what I understand. But yeah, I think from what I've seen, this card just it's very like almost textbook Yu-Gi-Oh combo where it's someone just really just doing their own thing for like 10, 15 minutes plus, and that's just not fun, while the other person just sits there and does nothing.
First of all, we have a format for Nadu to just play against Nadu 1v1 over and over. It's called Brawl on Arena. So we basically have Yu-Gi-Oh! Is what I just heard.
Oh, good.
But yeah. I think I also said this card would get banned in Commander, and this is not the we'll say this is not the thing that has people up in arms. I think most people expected and are totally on board with it. Okay. Now, because price ramifications are going to be a big part of this video, we're going to talk about the price of Nadu.
No, not the prices, CGV, please.
Yes.
Not the prices.
Yes.
My kryptonite.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So Nadu, after it did really well and insanely well at a Pro Tour, won a Pro Tour, defined a Pro Tour metagame.
Okay.
Where do you think the card settled as a rare in a current set, a mass-produced, widely opened set?
So when you say settled, do you mean after it already won?
Yeah, it won the Pro Tour.
So here's the thing. So with Yu-Gi-Oh, this happens all the time where there's like a crazy new card that gets released and it spikes to the moon. And then immediately if people think it's going to get banned, because for Yu-Gi-Oh, we have the OCG format, which is like the Asian territories, and there's several sets ahead of us. So we kind of get to like see how good some cards are prior to their release. And so sometimes if something is like tier 0 best deck and we get it here, it might be legal for like a tournament or two and then they ban it. Historically, that has happened before, and it's not like it's only happened once or twice. So what'll happen is the card will spike to the moon, and then immediately once that tournament concludes, the price just nosedives because everyone's trying to sell it off because they think it's going to get banned and they don't want to get stuck with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nadu followed a similar trajectory. The thing is, I don't know, like, so we've done price videos before. I don't know
of a current rare.
Yeah, like that's like the tough part, because I know this isn't
I'll fill that in for context,
sure.
Because I think that's just fair. So before the Pro Tour, Nadu as a rare in widely open premium Modern Horizons 3 was $13.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's insane. So for what was expected to be like the best deck by a mile, this in Yu-Gi-Oh would be like $100, $150 easily.
In standard, mythics can get there, and
because
in modern that can happen too. But this is a rare, and it's in a widely distributed set.
Interesting. So this would be like your equivalent of an ultra rare for Yu-Gi-Oh then. Okay, I mean, there's still been instances of ultra rares hitting like $50, $60, $70 if they're that good. So that's interesting that like this only really went to like 13 at its like peak. So what did it crash down to, are you asking?
I'm wondering what it was after the Pro Tour.
After the Pro Tour, I wouldn't be surprised if it went down to like $5, just because again, people are probably trying to offload it if 13 was the high. So I'll go with $5.
Sure, I'll give it to you. $6.
Hey,
well once, done. Yeah,
for once we get a price.
All right, here's the fun part. What can you buy Nadu for today, the day after the banning?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with a nice crisp George Washington, $1.
$1.38. Did it. Yeah, you killed it. Perfect. Well done. So on that note, we're going to be looking at some of the implications of the other bands, which I'm sure are going to keep many of you tuned in. And we're gonna blow your mind on that one, I think. Absolutely. Okay, so Nadu had to go. Nadu not worth much no more. No problem. No big deal, right?
I'm telling you, Yu-Gi-Oh players, we're used to this. I'm in my home. Right. I'm in my domain.
Let's see. Oh, goody. What do we start with for what got banned? All right, here we go. What is coming at you costs 0 mana. You should be right at home.
Right at home. Maybe these all cost 0 mana. All right. Okay. Boy, this looks. You better show what I get to see to the audience versus what they get to see, because
No, Libby, don't show up. No. My artwork is not the point of this video.
For anyone who, if he doesn't show it, for context, all I get to see is the bottom half of a card with what looks like Sharpie, like just drawn through stuff. So okay.
I'm sure people would play cards like this.
Okay. So all I see is that it's an artifact. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, whatever this is, because it's blacked out, deals 3 damage to you. And then this taps to add 2 colorless. I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
Yep.
Okay. Beginning of your upkeep. So first you just get to, do I get to know what this costs? Oh, it says, you put it in Discord, I see. It says, so this costs 0, and you did say that before, now that I'm thinking. So this costs 0, and you just get to play this to add 2, but you have to always toss a coin at the beginning of your upkeep to determine whether or not you get to do it again. So if anything, this is a free 2 mana, which is pretty good. And then there is a world where you just keep losing the coin flip and this thing just slowly kills you, which is kind of funny. But, do you care? Typically, stuff like this in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that doesn't matter. Because obviously, unless you're dead, then this doesn't matter in the slightest. But, I don't think we'd really have an effect like this in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are very few good coin flip cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! They're very few. Just because people don't like randomness. But this is different.
Oh, God. You're killing me now. What? I don't like RNG in Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay.
But this is different because it's an artifact. And I remember from one of our other videos that it's not hard to untap artifacts. There's things you can do there. So you could just also circumvent the fact that you could lose the coin toss, and then if you need to untap it yourself, you can just do that. Or there's just some shenanigans there. That seems pretty good, especially considering this just gives you 2 colorless and it costs 0. But is that ban worthy is the question. See, this is where it's tough, right? Because you guys, you pesky Magic players and your resources, can't imagine what that's like.
So you're saying grass, you're saying the 2 mana, is it really useful without context of all the things you can do with it?
It's more so okay, you get to play it for free. On face value, you get 2 mana. Okay, sure. Right? And then let's say half the times you untap this, it's not colored, which is important. But it is still colorless, which can just help you pay the cost of anything. And as I've learned from doing these videos with you, just helping ramp you is really good. But this is also Commander, and in Commander, everything's legal for the most part. So everything just gets ridiculous in this format. So I guess what I'm questioning is this good enough? And I feel like it is. I feel like this card has seen play. And I feel like it would probably be played in a lot of things unless there's a reason to, not play it. And then, did they ban this then because like every deck was playing it because it's free and it just ramps you quite a bit. So then that's why they ban it, because they're like, oh, we want to like have it so that people aren't starting their deck building with the same 5 cards every single time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like even if you just go 50-50 with this over the course of several turns, like this card's probably fine. Like this card's probably good. Probably really good, actually. There's going to be the games where you just like don't get to use this more than once, and that sucks, but I think that's just variance.
What do you mean? You don't get to use it more than once?
Like, there could be a world where you keep... Oh, no, it keeps untapping. You just take 3 damage. I'm sorry. I thought, like, it just didn't untap. Oh, okay. No, this is crazy. No, this is crazy. I don't know why for my head. I don't know why in my head I'm like, oh, okay.
Dude.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Player can't read.
Wow.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Player can't read. Put the meme in the comments. Yu-Gi-Oh! Player can't read.
I knew there was something. I was trying to figure out what it was without being too invasive or giving too much away.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Player can't read. What else is new? Even when the text... I'm used to cards having 50 times as much text as this. Sorry. Okay, yeah, no. This card seems crazy. I could see this getting banned. Yeah.
And it is.
Woo!
This was banned. You are looking at Mana Crypt. I love what you thought it did, because now maybe you fixed Mana Crypt. Like if you lose the flip, you don't get to use the mana, maybe. But yeah, in Commander, which is like 7 turns is like casual, normal.
Well, and you have 40 life in
normal.
Commander too, don't you?
40 life.
Yeah,
Yep. 10 turns is a lot of turns. Yeah, it's. In fact, let's hear exactly what the rules committee said about this, because, like you said, us spoiled Magic players get a little blurb on why something was banned.
Nice.
Important note: these are not banned by Wizards of the Coast, that company that makes the game. These are banned by the Commander Rules Committee, which is a different organization.
So, do they work?
Affiliated?
So they're affiliated, but they don't work for Wizards?
They don't work for Wizards, and in theory are not connected to Wizards and are a separate entity.
I doubt that, but okay, sure. Let's go with that.
Many people, I think, agree with you after this week. I can see why there is suspicion there. All right. So what it says is... I have thoughts.
Read, and then I will go into what I'm thinking on that.
Excellent. I'll even put it here if you want to read it with me. Actually, let's try something new. I usually read this to people. Would you mind reading it? I'm curious.
Sure. I mean, I don't know how well that's going to go, considering I was imagining this card had text. Let me ask you this. If Mana Crypt didn't untap if you lost the coin flip, do you actually think it'd be balanced?
It would be way more feels bad. That's an interesting thing to try. I don't know if it would get banned.
Maybe that's what they're going to print next.
Dude, they're going to maybe there'd be enough people, I think, who wouldn't play it. That it would make a huge difference.
Interesting. They're going to print Mana Cave instead of Mana Crypt, and that's what it's going to do. It's going to be the exact same effect. Just watch. All right, Mana Crypt. Coming down for no mana on turn 1, it's quite possible to have an explosive start of Mana Crypt into a Signet or a Talisman land or another Signet, leaving the player untapping 5 mana on turn 2, whatever that means. In games going over 12 turns, the accumulated threat... I figured. In games going over 12 turns, the accumulated threat of damage from Mana Crypt provides a reasonable counterbalance for its explosive effect, but when you're snowballing to a turn 6 to 8 win, it's a meaningless drawback.
Yeah, that's the reasoning. There it is. What do you think of the reason?
I mean, it's sort of like what I was thinking, and then once I realized it's way better than I thought, then that makes a lot of sense. Even in games that go to 12 turns, I still don't think that drawback matters, because especially from my little understanding of Commander, there's just so much you're able to do, considering you're going to have so many resources at your disposal most of the time, that even if the games keep drawing out even longer, like, I don't think it's that big of a downside. We all know as card game players, like, life doesn't really matter most of the time. So
yeah, we know it's absurdly powerful. Like, it's free mana. It's an artifact. It could go in every deck. Those are some of the things, that they didn't really mention. This is where it gets spoopy. Mana Crypt is best in class mana ramp.
Okay.
Just 0 mana,
free.
make 2, ongoing. Yeah, until removed. Yeah, it's actual Yu-Gi-Oh. So
too bad it's banned. Maybe I'd like this format then.
ooh, too soon. How much do you think a Mana Crypt sold for last week?
Okay, so this is prior to banning.
Yep.
You're asking.
We'll go listed median price. Yeah.
Do I get to have any context of like year this was printed? Do I get anything, or am I just shooting blind here?
Oh, that's a good question. I will say this hasn't been printed for like a standard Magic set.
Okay.
Like ever.
Okay.
It was originally
So it's
made
old.
available from a Harper Prism book. You had to send in the proof of purchase from buying a book to get this. And it was the only way to get it. And I did in fact do that.
That's incredible.
As a boy, as a young lad. Now this has been reprinted in multiple master sets, which are premium products, and it was printed as a special guest foil in a standard set, Ixalan, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but only in the collector booster. So it was in a mega premium slot and still not standard legal. So it's only been printed in those settings.
I can't really make fun of the book thing, by the way, because Yu-Gi-Oh puts promo cards like in copies of the manga sometimes. And sometimes those cards have been actually like format defining cards, which is crazy. So
wow.
I mean,
Okay. All right. That's not weird then. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it seems like from what you're telling me, there's several ways to get this card, but it is gated by some like price heavy products.
Formats are important. Banned in Legacy, banned in Commander, banned in Oathbreaker, not legal in any other formats like Modern, and restricted to 1 copy in Vintage, which, if you recall, is the Mega Whale old school format that I don't even know anybody who plays it.
I want it. Okay. And this is also, if it's Commander players, if it's like limited quantity, gated behind expensive products. Oh, man. I would not be surprised. Like, this is easily $100. I feel like this is probably, could be a couple $100 then, because like if every deck is probably playing this and there's no reason for them not to, and everyone wants one. I don't want to go too crazy though. This isn't reserve list or anything, right?
Correct.
Okay, that makes a big difference then. I kind of have an idea of like the price ceiling of that now. I could see this at least 100. I'm kind of like, do I want to go 2? I think if it's gated behind all these expensive products, and especially if the ones that it's like giga randomized and it's a mythic, then it's probably even harder to get as well.
Live your dreams. Don't let your memes be dreams, bro.
You know what? I will take a shot in the dark. I'll say 250. I'll say
250.
Yeah.
250 for a Mana Crypt.
Yes.
The listed median last week was $195.
Okay, not bad. I was gonna I was thinking 200. I went up to 250 because like I was typically always under before. So okay.
Yep.
All right, not bad.
And that is for the double masters as pictured Mana Crypt for anybody wondering. The high sale price was $243 in the last month.
Not bad.
What do you think it's worth today? What could you pick one up for today?
Okay, so it is still legal in Vintage though, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, the Vintage people probably all have these already, so they probably don't care.
Not a lot of people surging into Vintage lately.
Right.
Pretty tough. It's a
pretty price prohibitive format from what you've told me. Okay, so this probably crashed hard in that case, because if it's banned everywhere, who the hell wants it? It's still early at the time of recording this because it's only been a few days since the bans, so it's probably going to continue to go down. I would say it's probably close to like $50. I think it needs more time to like go down. So that would be my guess, $50.
All right. The current average is listed at $79.80, so about $80.
Okay.
With the low sale at $60.
Not bad. I overestimated how quickly it would drop, apparently, but
I'm surprised personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's holding a little bit here, and one of the things I said right after this happened that I think a lot of people are, not because I said it, but because I think it's true. I think a lot of people are hanging on to the idea that there might be a different format. There might be a different format to play it in someday in the future,
especially if they've already held on to it this long. Yeah, that makes sense.
There's probably a lot of emotional attachment to Mana Crypt. This banning caused a lot of pain. You seem very chill about it. Like, seeing a Mana Crypt go from $200 down to $80 has really triggered a lot of people. I've heard a lot of stories about people who saved up for a Mana Crypt that was their first big commander purchase because it could go in any deck. So this one's been a huge story.
So, I mean, I'm empathetic to that, but for the reasons that are probably not going to sound good. I don't really know how to phrase this, but so for people who don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Konami especially have a very aggressive reprint policy. And so it's not uncommon for a cycle of an expensive card to follow the trajectory of expensive card gets released, or gets hyped up before release because people know it's really good. Card comes out, card is, and this is for new cards. They'll go to $100, $150. Sometimes it'll maybe hit $200, but that's pretty uncommon now. I think $100, $150 is the sweet spot for a lot of these types of cards. It'll come out, people will buy it. Sometimes it's a 1 of, sometimes it's a 3 of, depending on the type of card and where it goes and such. Then you have it for about let's say 9 months ish, and I'm talking about cards that specifically come from core sets. 9 months ish, and then what we get every year in the summertime are the Megatins, and the Megatins reprint every single card from the past 4 core sets from the previous year in the Megatins.
Wow.
They either put them at the same rarity, or sometimes they even go and lower the rarity to make it more accessible in quotes. So this $150 card 9 months later now is maybe worth $40, let's say. And so even if the card is harder to pull because it's of a higher rarity in the Megatin, that's just the cycle. And so
that
I guess
is a normal cycle in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, so as Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, I think we're just used to this, and so people know if they're not going to be playing with those types of cards to sell them off immediately, because unless there is a huge surge in play of one of those cards in particular, or it's I'm not counting the outliers of cards of special rarities. I'm talking about just a base secret rare for anyone watching. That's just the trajectory. So people know that to get rid of the cards before the Megatin reprint season comes around, because the price of all of these core set cards is most likely going to tank. And I think we're just used to that. So as sad as it sounds, that's kind of what I was alluding to before I started talking about this. We're just used to paying these ridiculous prices, and then we just know, unless it's well, that's not even true anymore, but used to be, if it was an exclusive premium rarity of a card back in the day, an ultimate rare, let's say, those cards would actually retain a lot of value, because even if they got reprinted, that exclusive rarity was just really special and really sought after, and so those cards sort of maintained a higher price point, and they never reprinted it in that rarity specifically. But nowadays, they just reprint everything into the sun, and they have done that for the past several years. So as Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, this is kind of why I express my empathy to everyone who got, just shafted by this, but it's sad to say we're kind of used to it by now, that we're kind of just numb to it. As sad as
oh my gosh. Yeah. It sounds like it's closer to Magic with standard rotation, because we knew every year a certain cycle would happen, and that our expensive cards that got, $50 to $100 in some cases would then be no longer playable. So we knew that we had to play this event, sell. You could plan.
Exactly.
Did the ban announcements for Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever hit really expensive cards? And did they ever come out of nowhere? Because that was part of this. This was, I can't stress how unexpected this was because of how few bans there have been recently.
I would say yes and no. I would say more often than not, you can sort of guess by the way that things are going at Yu-Gi-Oh! In any current moment that you could wager a guess X, Y, or Z card might get hit. And sometimes people are just completely off and, different cards get hit. Or in the instance of if it's like there's only one deck that's playable, kind of like the Nadu thing, right? They will just like immediately hit the cards. And so there have been instances where people were flying to tournaments to compete in a weekend, and then they already like banned 6 cards in the deck. So after that weekend, the deck was no longer playable. And then everyone who paid for those cards, some of which were like secret rares and stuff, got just completely shafted and spent all that money.
Cards?
Yeah, it was arguably one of the best decks ever in Yu-Gi-Oh! But not all of them were secret rares. Not all of them were secret rares.
But it could happen. Like it could happen. It could happen. But it's such a part of it. Sounds like it's such a part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience. We'll even say the culture that it's not the sky is falling. Is what I'm hearing.
People get mad, but I think it's gotten to the point now where it's happened so often. And remember, we don't have standard rotation. So for us, like our ban lists sort of are our rotation, if you will. So I think in that sense, over time, people just understand that this is the cycle and the way that things are. And so it's kind of like if you don't sell off your stuff ahead of time prior to knowing that the reprint season's coming around, you know, that's kind of on you at that point. And people in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like let people know this who are newer, right? Like we tell people like, oh, don't treat like Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles especially as like an investment or anything, because the reprint policy on Konami's end is just they don't care. They will even the super exclusive quarter century secret rare, which is the 25th anniversary exclusive rarity that they've been doing. They're printing so many copies of it that they're not even special and they're not even worth anything. So that's just kind of how it is, sadly. What's like the most expensive though, like a standard like mythic will get to, out of curiosity?
Lately around $100.
Okay, so you guys will hit
very
$100
unusual.
cards.
Yeah,
okay.
It happens, but it's very unusual. It's usually like one card in the format will get there, not
sure.
Like...
And that's typically like what happens with us too. But like, so people don't get pissed when the $100 mythic becomes unplayable 2 years later. Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, but standard's a very different format. I think part of that, like opting into standard, like I said, is understanding a predictable cycle that's set up in advance. In Commander, you expect your cards to be good forever.
I see.
The bans have been so few and far between, especially in recent years. You expect your cards to be good forever.
Interesting.
That is kind of the mindset that I think has the mindworm that's gotten into Commander players, and that is why this is such a big deal.
I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a combination of both standard and Commander in that point, because since we are an eternal format, we always like expect a lot of cards that are older to like be good, and sometimes that's the case. Like sometimes they'll get unbanned and all of a sudden they're good again, right? But it's also going into it accepting, knowing that with newer products specifically, that they are going to aggressively reprint it, and there is that cycle. So I think Yu-Gi-Oh's both, which is, I think, maybe why we just kind of like shrug our shoulders at it, sadly.
Wow. It's really bizarre to hear that side of it. Very actually enlightening. Let's keep moving on the cards. We got it. So now that you've gotten a baseline of what they decide to ban and the reasoning for it, let me show you another card and you can tell me if you think they banned it.
Artifact. Great. I love these half-chopped cards that I get.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's delightful, right?
1 mana artifact. Tap to add 2 mana. Oh, isn't this is Soul Ring, isn't it? I know Soul Ring.
It is Soul Ring. Okay. That is the fall. I tried to get you. It's the Fallout art.
Oh, I see. It's fun. Yeah, it's like his little
Do
legs.
You see the Vault guy's pants?
Yeah, the Vault guys, the Vault boys' legs. Yeah, that's funny.
Yep. That's right.
No, yeah. So I know Soul Ring. Did they ban Soul Ring? There's no way they would ban. Well, okay. Let me think about this. They banned Mana Crypt, and Mana Crypt and Soul Ring are like basically the same card. Technically, Soul Ring is like better Mana Crypt, right? Yeah, it doesn't cost 0. I guess that's a big difference. Because free and not free in your game are night and day. But it does the same thing. You don't have to take the 3 damage. Yeah, it's just, I mean, for the most part, aside from the fact it costs 0, it's strictly better. But is that worth costing 1? Did they really ban that?
Would it blow your mind?
I mean, I feel like it's almost just like synonymous with the format from like the little that I know. I feel like if you hear anyone talk about Commander, like at some point someone's going to mention Soul Ring in some capacity. And I don't know if that's like a good or bad thing and plays into whether or not they banned it or not. But it's weird. I feel like if they would ban Mana Crypt, I wouldn't be like, if for the reason they would ban Mana Crypt, it would make sense to me that they'd also ban Soul Ring, because from a play pattern perspective, it basically does the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's so weird. Unless like it costing 0 makes that big of a difference, but I can't justify that.
It's the difference between 3 mana on turn 1 and 2 mana on turn 1, I guess, if you look at it that way.
But it's just, I feel like it's still strictly better in most instances because there's no downside. Like my brain is like, if they ban Mana Crypt, surely they ban Soul Ring, right? That's what my brain's going through. So I feel like either that's the case, or you're just messing with me and showing me this and they didn't ban it. But like, I can't, you showed me this explanation and it's the same logic for Soul Ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like at this point, I ignore everything and think if you're mind gaming me here or not.
What would the things I do for content?
Yeah, indeed. I want to say it's banned. I want to, because it doesn't make sense. It's the same. It's better. It's better. And you can play both of these, which is even crazier.
That's right.
I guess I feel like you're baiting me.
Live your dreams, man.
You know what? I will live my dreams. I'm going to say they didn't. And I don't care if I'm wrong, because you know what? To me, it doesn't make sense. But I think that's why you're showing this to me. You're going to be like, oh, he's going to look at Mana Crypt, and then he's going to see Soul Ring, and he's going to connect all the dots. He's like, they banned that card too. And you know what, CGB? I see through your plan. It's not going to work. Not banned. Final answer.
Oh, 100% not banned. 100% not banned. But it's not me.
With such conviction.
It's not me doing this. It's not me following this logic. It's the whole community. Because not only did they not ban Soul Ring, they devoted a little paragraph in their announcement to why they didn't ban Soul Ring.
Okay.
Will you read this beautiful gem for me?
Sure. It's so nice that you have this, by the way. We should also talk about the elephant in the room. We're not banning Soul Ring and have no desire to. They just came out and said it. Yes, based on the criteria we've talked about here, it would be banned. Soul Ring is... Okay, clearly, that's what I just said. Soul Ring is the iconic card of the format. Oh, that's funny. I said that too. And is sufficiently tied to the identity of the format that it defies the laws of physics in a way that no other card does. That's so funny. So it's just vibes based is what they're doing here. Banning Soul Ring would be fundamentally changing the identity of the format. We aren't trying to eliminate all explosive starts. It happening every once in a while is exciting, and removing the other 3 cards geometrically reduces the number of hands capable of substantial above-curve mana generation in the first few turns. Okay, it's vibes based. That's what I got from that. They're like, nah, keep it Soul Ring. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
They're just like, we don't really feel like it.
So, like, they even acknowledge that by their own argument, Soul Ring should also be banned. And this is one of the big things the community is, like, coping with. Something they don't mention here that I think is the biggest deal, honestly, like, again, this is an independent organization, right? They're not a part of WotC, right?
Let's go with that.
If they ban Soul Ring, Soul Ring's been included, as we talked about in another video, Soul Ring's been included in every pre-con. Every deck they've released, every Commander product has a Soul Ring in it. You make all of those decks out of the box illegal. Every single one of them. And you could sure say that in the past they've done like low rules adjustments when they made this mistake with a card called Faceless Haven in a standard deck that was pre-constructed. They said, if you play the exact 60 card deck that you bought, you can play Faceless Haven in standard. Like, they made an adjustment call.
Okay.
Look, man, nobody in Commander wants to be in the situation where you're at the table with somebody who is playing a pre-con, unquote, and they have their Soul Ring in it, and then they play one card that maybe they got switched somewhere, and you're the person at the table calling it out. That is a terrible situation. They will not ban Soul Ring ever guys, like, people don't want to admit this. They want to be like, well, logically, the correct approach from like their own reasoning. It doesn't matter. They're never going to ban a card that's going to make all of their out of the box products illegal. And then they go and they play their deck just with some strangers. Remember, it's a social format. You play it with strangers. You go to Command Fest and you play it. You don't want a very casual player dropping their Soul Ring out of their precon and having somebody at the table being like, that got banned. Like that's a horrible experience. Mana Crypt's not in any precons. There's no risk of that.
Yeah. And that's like, okay, so when we're talking about like the product design and everything too, anyone who, let's just say that some of us in the Yu-Gi-Oh space are very, skeptical of our company, right?
Really?
And yeah, shocker. I know. Crazy. Let's just say that when they're saying how this committee is not affiliated with Wizards or anything like that, or WotC, whatever, there's no way I find that to be true, especially if they were doing these bans, right? Because you're going to tell me that this committee is going to unilaterally decide to hit these cards and not let Wizards know, so that if Mana Crypt is in like a future product, that it immediately is worthless. No shot.
Hold on. We gotta address that. So they've basically, members of the committee have straight up said that they've been in talks with Wizards about this for months.
Okay.
That was revealed. People are taking that in a number of ways. They're diving down the rabbit hole in so many different ways. I would say there's a huge difference between saying that they are in talks with Wizards about what's getting banned over a period of time. There's a huge difference between that and some of the rabbit holes people leap into. But these committees are having dialogue. Like they in theory are a different organization, but they are having dialogue with Wizards apparently for a long time in advance of making these calls, which is another thing that has people very upset.
They'd have to, because if people understand anything about product design, they create these products several months, if not years in some cases, in advance, right? So they'd have to.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Lost Caverns of Ixalan had Mana Crypt as a chase card in that special guest spot. Like I said, that's as recently as last November. So not quite a year removed from this being a chase card. And it's going to be interesting. I've said this a few times now, to watch the product releases that happen, and if these were some of the reprints that were designed to make people chase those products, because this is a very expensive card.
Well, and if it's anything like Yu-Gi-Oh, I would not be surprised to see Mana Cave get released in the near future, which is Mana Crypt revamped. And good, you're gonna have to pay $100 for this to replace your Mana Crypt in your Commander deck. I'm just saying, we've seen this before. That
is another conspiracy theory, and it's hard to say what comes first, right? Like the conspiracy theorists will say Wizards gave the RC the green light because they plan to release new staples that they want to sell because they can't sell the old staples anymore. Right? Something like that. But the other side is maybe the RC wanted to ban this, and Wizards, with a little heads up on that, because they work together, has been hard at work creating new staples. It's hard to say what follows what. What is almost for sure going to happen is that you're right. There's going to be new staples. Yeah. that for sure is going to happen.
It's a card game. They have to make new staples.
Business.
It's their business.
It's their business.
Exactly.
It's what they do. And it's kind of brutal when it's on the nose. But this is what we do with our time, isn't it?
Yeah, we've devoted our lives to it. Here we are.
We have signed up for this. Some freaking how. All right, let's do another card.
Okay. Oh, great. My next half card. Thank you.
Dude.
It's another artifact. I'm noticing a trend here. Blank doesn't untap during your untap step. I feel like I'm on a game show. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 4. If you do, untap blank. At the beginning of your draw step, if blank is tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. And then you tap it to add 3. Okay, so this is like I don't want to say this is upgraded Mana Crypt, but it's like it is a similar version that lets you get 3 mana, but it has way more restrictions on it. Okay, I'm going to make sure I read this properly this time. blank doesn't untap during your untap step. That's what I thought Mana Crypt did. At the beginning of your upkeep, you pay 4 if you do untap this. And then at the beginning of your draw step, if blank is tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. Okay. So this is what I thought the Mana Vault did. Mana Vault, Mana Crypt. Crypt, that's what it is. Mana Crypt. Doesn't untap during your untap step. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 4 if you do untap this. At the beginning of your draw step, if is tapped, deal 1 damage to you. Add 3.
Would you like to buy a vowel?
This one's weird. So this costs 1, right? Yeah. So it's not 0. But you play it for 1, it gives you 3. Doesn't untap during your untap step. So, and then you have to pay 4 to untap. So this is kind of what I was hypothesizing with the Mana Crypt. That I was thinking there'd be like some shenanigans where if you can like keep untapping this to like bypass this restriction, which doesn't seem like out of the ordinary, then like this could be really good just because it's one thing that generates 3. But the difference is you have to pay to untap this, which is a big difference. And then with the, was it the Crypt? I like how you just picked all cards that basically do the same thing, but just have more and more restrictions. This is messing me up.
Yeah? Is this part hard?
I feel like that's a much bigger downside because you have to pay 4 to add 3. So you're going to get to use this once in the early game. And then you have to pay 4 to untap it, unless there's ways to either reduce the cost or there's ways to just untap it and keep abusing it that way. Where the other one's just going to continuously give you 2. Regardless if it does damage or not. This does damage, but like who cares? Like whatever. 1 damage is meaningless. We've already established that.
Yeah, life total irrelevant in Commander.
Yeah. I feel like, so yes, this could also contribute to an explosive start to an extent. It is still colorless mana, but the biggest thing is it doesn't snowball as much unless you have some cheap engine that you can play very quickly to continuously like tap and untap this for like multiple uses. Whereas like Mana Crypt, for instance, I keep wanting to call this Mana Vault. It looks like a vault. I don't know why. This card looks like a vault to me. Like, it looks like there would be, like, something in there that you're, like... I guess there's no, like, door or anything. But, like, that's what this looks like. That's why I keep calling it Mana Vault. But Mana Crypt, like, you're getting 2 constantly every single turn. Damage aside, whatever. Where this gives you, like, 1 big burst of mana once, and then... that's it until you find something to do with it. And, like, I don't know if there's generic enough engines that people can play in Commander. Probably, but I don't know how generic. It might be color specific. So it gives you this 1 really big burst, but then that's it until, like, later stages of the game. I feel like this is abusable, but I don't think it's as bad as, like... if Soul Ring wasn't Soul Ring, I feel like Soul Ring would be banned. But like this, I feel like you have to jump through some hoops, but it is a way to just give you this like ridiculous amount of mana, assuming you can always come out like 1 ahead. Like, can you do 2 mana worth of things to untap this to give you 3? Is what I'm trying to like cobble together in my brain.
Yeah, there are many ways to do it in the format. It is a singleton format. 100-card deck, singleton format. There are many ways to do it.
But then can you consistently do it? Since it's 100-card decks as well.
There aren't like 12 ways to do it. Some of them are very color dependent. There are a couple that are very cheap and are also colorless.
I think this is really good, but I think I don't know if I'm leaning towards this wasn't banned. This feels like it's in certain decks you would play this for like some reason, but I don't think every deck would play this. I don't know why. That's just like the vibe I'm getting here. I feel like other decks would just rather play something else instead. Where I feel like with Soul Ring and then Mana Crypt, I feel like those are basically includes in almost every deck. Like that's just like a staple that every deck plays. Where this, I feel like there needs to be a reason for you to play this. Like you need to be playing a deck that has one of those combos to abuse this. And if your deck doesn't care about that, then you don't want to play this card. So I feel like it's less generic than the other two, which is why I think it wasn't banned. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some abusable way to that it would be banned. Because I mean, Gist getting +3 mana off of one thing is, I mean, it's not Black Lotus, but it's pretty close. So, final answer, not banned.
I feel like your subconscious was working overdrive here.
What?
This is Mana Vault.
Okay,
you literally called it Mana Vault.
I'm just gonna say it.
Me.
I'm just gonna say it. The crypt looks more like a vault. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, like, this does not look like... This looks like Mana Monolith to me. You're going to tell me that's a card.
I also put it right after the Vault Boy Soul Ring. Like, I was absolutely trying to mess with you.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I'm just saying, this doesn't look like a vault to me. I'm just... If people want to argue with me in the comments over that, so be it. That doesn't look like a vault. But tell me about Mana Vault.
Yeah, Mana Vault was not
so
banned.
Funny.
But
okay.
Mana Vault has seen a lot of discussion and we'll call it activity since the ban. So,
okay.
Yep. So you want to take a see if you can guess what the average price was for this a week ago.
Oh God,
before the ban. This is a similar printing. It's a very similar printing schedule to Mana Crypt.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's as good as Mana Crypt, though. So the Mana Crypt was like just under 200. I can see this being at least 100, like maybe like 125. So I'll go like that. That sounds fine.
Okay. So Mana Vault is, like, in my opinion, and, you know, only having played these cards for a really long time, nowhere near Mana Crypt. Or Soul Ring. I think you're right. It's not nearly as good as both of those. And Mana Vault as a kind of one-shot is more of what you would call a ritual effect. And the ritual is colorless. And it's it's positive 2 mana the turn that you play it. There's some other cards like Dark Ritual that this is more comparable to. You were trying to find ways to untap it. Honestly, those don't come together in Commander often and are not a serious part of most strategies.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. There are like 3-card and 4-card combos for infinite mana, but for what you would call the fair use of Mana Vault, of play this on turn 1, turn 2, have 5 mana one time, is not as powerful in Commander as people want it to be. Because unlike with like Mana Crypt or Soul Ring, you play your Commander. On turn 2, everybody freaks out, kills your commander. You still have the Mana Crypt. You still have the Soul Ring. And they pay the commander tax so you can recast your commander in a few turns. Mana Vault is a lot more work to get back to that mana. And if they remove your 5-mana commander on turn 2, you're not playing that thing again for a long time. You have to get to turn 4, untap your Mana Vault, assuming you don't find another way to like ramp up. And then maybe you can cast it again. Like,
interesting.
It's a much worse play pattern. I think people don't understand how much worse this is than Mana Crypt. That brings, by the way, we didn't mention the price for Soul Ring. That's because Soul Ring is cheap and has remained cheap, not really changing because of the amount of printings of it.
It's in every deck. Yeah.
It's in every deck. So Mana Vault, going into this ban announcement, the average price was hovering right around $60.
Ooh.
A very good card, definitely printed in premium spots, but not that level of power level.
Doesn't hold a candle. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep, $60 is powerful and could be in every deck, but not game warping.
Maybe it's because it doesn't look like a vault. That's my biggest issue with it.
It's the art. Okay, I'm going to let the artist know. What do you think Mana Vault is today?
Okay, so we also have a lot of experience with this in Yu-Gi-Oh, where as soon as something gets banned, everyone's looking for the next alternatives, right? And then they know that, especially because our ban cycles are traditionally within the realm of 3 to 6 months, they don't really announce them, so it's kind of random, but it's... people know that, okay, we just had a ban list, so now we can safely buy some cards again, and they're not going to be hit for at least, you know, a good period of time if we want to get some play use out of them. So what I'm guessing happened is Mana Crypt gets banned, and everyone's like, oh, we need a backup Mana Crypt. What's next? Mana Vault, if that's like the alternative, although you're saying it's not even really like the best alternative. But it is an alternative. So I could see the stonks going crazy with Mana Vault now. And it's probably maybe where I was initially saying it. Like, maybe it's now 120, like 125. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it doubled if everyone's trying to go to this now because they have to replace their Mana Crypt. So, yeah, I'll just stick with my same number.
So the high sale for this exact edition of Mana Vault in the last 2 days, $150, and it seems to be sticking at like $148.99.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, big increase. And you said I don't like. I just want to clarify one thing. This is a potential replacement for Mana Crypt. It might be the best one. Mana Crypt was that much of an outlier. I mean, that it was that much of a best in show type of card that there is no clear replacement. And this is probably, you know, as good as it's going to get.
So people are coping is what you're saying.
Yeah. Whatever Mana Cave is, it's going to have huge shoes to fill.
You watch, it's going to be Mana Cave. Everyone's going to laugh.
Dude, if it's literally called Mana Cave, the comments on this video, like, updated in, you know, April 2025 when Mana Cave is real. Like,
I'm just going to be part of the conspiracy then. Everyone's going to be like, oh, Cimo had the insider information.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's do another one.
Okay. I've only gotten one. There's still 2 more that are banned. Okay, so we're 2 of 4. So I've got a 50% shot regardless. Another artifact. Great. Thanks, CGB.
You're welcome.
Tap, sacrifice blank, add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander. Whoa. The first part of this is Lotus, right?
Yes.
Because it's Black Lotus was also add 3 of any one color, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. But you could do that for anything. Yada yada. Best card ever. But it's only for your commander.
Yeah. Like, okay. I am curious. Do you think that's good?
So I don't know. From like the 2 games of Commander I've probably played.
You probably understand that casting your commander is something people like to do.
Yeah, like that's kind of like the whole design of the format. So I would hope so. And that's pretty good because it's not like colorless either, like all these other vaults and crypts and caves, right? So like if you have, which most commanders I imagine have color in some capacity, even if they're dual color, right? Like so if you play, how much does this cost? This costs 0. Oh my god, that seems disastrous. So like best case scenario, you play this. You play a blue land, and then you could like you sacrifice this for like 3 black mana, right? And now you have 4 mana and of 2 colors. So you could basically play a dual color commander, assuming it isn't like 2. Well, if it is 2 of one color, you just flip it around. You get what I'm saying? Yep. You could play multicolor commanders with this on turn 1, basically.
2 color commanders, yep.
Yeah. You couldn't do 3 unless there's like some weird stuff you do, but I think that's probably fine. I think 3 color commanders are more outliers than anything.
3 color commanders are the most popular type of commanders.
Are they really? Interesting.
Yep, that is an actual. You can look that. You nerds in comments can look that one up on EDH Rec. Yeah.
See, that shows how much I know about this format. Okay, I guess maybe because your colors dictate which cards you're allowed to play, so maybe people want to play certain types of cards. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. I mean, I've learned that mana cheating's crazy. That's nothing new. You can only do it for your commander, but like, who cares? Also, remind me, so the commander tax, if I recall, if your commander dies, you can replay it, but it costs like 2 more, 3 more?
Correct. Yep, 2 generic more.
Okay,
Yep.
so could you use this to pay that as well? Because it's any generic, right? Okay.
You could, yes.
Okay. That's also really good. So even if you don't see this in the early turns to like turbo ramp your commander out, if you see this later and you're like 1 or 2, and that's cumulative, right? So if it dies again, you have to pay it twice, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so even if you see this later, it effectively is like, oh, you can just pay the tax with this card, if you will, or like the tax and a half of this card if it's like the second time around. That seems insane. That seems like every deck would play this card. I'm struggling to not see a world where you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't want to play this card. I mean, it's the name of the format. It's Commander. I could see this being, though, like a Soul Ring argument, potentially, depending on like where this card is slotted, that they don't want to hit this card because it's somehow like synonymous with the format or something. But you also showed me the Soul Ring thing, and maybe this is one of the cards they're also hitting to stop the fast starts as well, just because it's 3 and it's free. We like free.
Yu-Gi-Oh players love free.
We love free. We love free. Too much, I think. I'm trying to talk myself out of why this wouldn't be banned. That's where I'm at. I notice you do that a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
I am finding a hard reason for this not to be banned. I feel like this is just like, this is an auto-include in every deck. And I feel like, especially with the logic of them turbocharging out the commander and stuff, I fail to see how this card is bad. If you tell me this card is bad, I'm going to be genuinely shocked. But I think this card is insane. So yeah, I'll say it was banned. Yeah, final answer.
So I'm definitely not trying to trap you today with any bad cards. I'm only showing you really
only
good
getting
stuff.
really good cards. Good. Okay.
Just so you know, okay. Like things that I think are on that bannable level. So I think an interesting conversation. I think it's an interesting point. Like you said, like, why wouldn't you play this? Every deck would want this. What if I told you this was in every single pre-constructed deck for a period of time?
I would believe you, because I don't see why in a game that has resources, why you would not cheat the resource.
And so if Wizards put this in all of the pre-constructed decks that it sold, it would make sense, right?
Oh, that they would... Wait, what do you mean?
They wouldn't want to ban it if it were in all those decks. If they could put it in any of those decks, right?
Okay.
Like, so if for a period of time this was in every pre-con, it would probably, that would be a reason not to ban it, right?
Is it still in every pre-con?
Good question, is it?
Oh my god, you're not going to tell me. That's so mean. So here's how I'm seeing this. I see this as a card they put in pre-cons to sell the pre-cons and get people really hyped, and then they, unlike Soul Ring is in every one, but like this card isn't. And then maybe this card has like just, you know, kind of similar to Mana Crypt. I had to go back up and check. Similar to Mana Crypt, it just has like such few printings that it may have just sort of like fallen to a similar fate where it's really expensive and everyone wanted to play it, and now it's banned.
This card was not in a pre-con.
Oh, okay.
I like to bring up the thought experiment because why wouldn't it be? They could. But they didn't. This is Jeweled Lotus, and Jeweled Lotus has been given the printing treatment. Yeah. When you said it's Lotus, right? I was like,
Pretty card.
But
beautiful art.
Yeah. Yes. And the poster card, the cover card, if you look at like the binders and a lot of the key art for Commander Masters, premium, like a double premium product from last summer. Not last summer, 2 summers ago now. It was a big deal. It has been put in the Mythic spot. It was created for Commander in a Commander Masters set. That's where it was first printed as a Mythic. It was put again in Commander Masters as a Mythic. Those are the printings. So it's got premium position, and it got banned.
I'm not surprised.
So why don't you read why it got banned before we get into price results?
Sure. Jeweled Lotus is another card that can give you 5 mana on turn 2. It does it without even needing a good hand. Yeah, exactly. Though you're restricted in what you can do with it, 4 and 5 mana commanders can pack a significant punch nowadays, often drawing cards to make up for the one-shot mana, and defensive abilities such as Ward can't be interacted with that early in the game.
Ward has been a trend of printing things like in order to remove this, you have to pay an additional cost. Sometimes the cost is more mana, so it's protective abilities.
Oh, that's annoying. Yeah.
So, again, they're saying playing your commander on turn 2 is bad, and they're banning this mega premium mythic spot treatment card for it, which you snuffed out. So, what do you think this was going for?
I will say, I was going to be surprised if they printed this in pre-cons, by the way. Like, this seems like...
Why?
I think based on the power level of this card and based on the business acumen of people working for these companies, this is something they would want to put in a randomized product to sell the product. Like, it
was designed to sell packs.
Exactly.
It was built for a format developed by fans and controlled by an outside art rules committee to sell packs to those players.
Yep. I'm going to guess this was the best card in that set.
Many people would say that.
Okay. I'm not surprised. You and I have been around these games long enough, CGB. I think we see through the tricks. Okay, so what is this worth pre-ban? That was the question?
What was it worth last week?
Man. This is probably money. I don't know. So because it's not generic, it's a one-time use. So compared to like Mana Crypt, I had to go look again. compared to Mana Vault, right? Like Mana Vault's a burst, but you only technically get it again later, but I don't know how many times you're realistically activating Mana Vault in a turn. But in any case, you can only use it for the commander. So that makes it a lot more narrow in its application, unless there's like ways to like somehow like recycle or abuse it, which there might be. You said Mana Vaults were like 60. The difference with Mana Vault though is I don't think everyone was playing that, where I think everyone was probably playing Jeweled Lotus. I could see this being a $100 card. I could maybe see this being $150, depending on how rare it is. My gut's telling me 100. I think 100 is like a good point for this.
Not bad. $120 was the high sold price. Yep. Sure. Take a shot at what the low sold price is.
God. Now.
Yeah.
It depends again how quickly they're crashing.
Really quick, this is legal in Vintage, but there's no commander in Vintage.
Oh, great. Perfect.
It's legal in Legacy, but commanders aren't played in Legacy. It's banned now in the format it was designed for. The thing you can spend your mana on, commander. It's banned in that one format.
It's really just tough because like maybe people just want to hold on to it for like sentimental value. It's probably around $50, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's lower at this point.
So you're gonna go with 50?
I'm gonna go with 50. Yeah, I'll go with 50.
All right, 39.
Okay, yeah,
39.
Like, really just depends. And then like in a few weeks it'll probably be even less than that, to be honest. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, there are sometimes cards that get banned and they still stay like a decent price just for whatever reason, right? It is still like a somewhat rare and sought after card, so maybe it does still demand some value. But yeah, $40. I see it.
If you're a commander player and you did get one of these for every deck, and you have, let's just say, a modest number, 5 decks.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about multiple decks. That's brutal.
Oh, so the greatest lie in Commander is you only need one of each card. Because, yeah, as soon as you're building more decks, it's like, oh, what? Yeah, I really just want to have, this. I want to have another Jeweled Lotus in this deck, too.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, it goes on and on. Trust me. While some people had 1 or 2 Jeweled Lotuses that took the hit, there are definitely those players out there, and they'll sound off in comments, that bought Jeweled Lotuses for 5, 6, maybe even 10 decks. And all of them went from $120 to $40 in 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, it's Mana Crypt too, I imagine, similar trajectory.
Oh, Mana Crypt also, yep. could be in all of these decks. So there you go. You've got two. Actually, you have 3 of the 4 banned cards because Nadu was like the first one.
I guess like the funny part about this to me is that since this is like a fan created format, like you can still play the game how you want at the end of the day. So like I don't know. Like do people play Commander like sanctioned? Is that a thing?
Yes, they play competitive EDH, but it is a subset. It's a very interesting topic because the quote CEDH community is a subset, a very small percentage of the Commander player base. It is growing, but so is Commander in general. But they do play it as a competitive format. There are tournaments for it. There is a tournament scene that is supported with prize support and things like that. And people do take it very seriously. It does exist. Yeah. It is a subset of the format. And one of the big arguments about this is Rule 0, which is the idea that if you talk to the people about what you want to play before playing it, or before you start a game, anything can be either on the table or off the table if you have a nice conversation before each game. And that's a very strong simplification of Rule 0. I'm not going to get into the weeds. But yeah, one of the arguments is if you want to play these with your friends and your friends are okay with it, go ahead. Nobody is stopping you.
Right.
The problem, I think, where a lot of some people see no problem with this, right? My friend Ben has a banned Commander deck that his Commander got banned. And he kept the deck together, and I let him play it. Like he's not doing anything busted with it. It's very powerful, but I'm not like, it's totally cool if he wants to play it. I think that the problem with this is that there are Magic card games like appeal to a certain type of person. The thing that holds our card game together is a set of rules.
Yeah.
If we're not following the rules, we're not playing the card game in our minds. And there's this like weird part of our mind that not only has to follow the rules, but it's like we have to be learning something about the format and decks and interactions like all the time. Sure. And I see this with my content. If I make content about formats that aren't real, it has to be there has to be a compelling reason that people would want to see that, because if it's just like, I decided I wanted to play Teferi in current standard, even though it rotated out, people are like, well, you're not playing standard and now I'm not interested because this is meaningless content. Yep. So like, yeah, you can play these. Is like some people will be fine with that. A lot of people won't be fine with that. A lot of people's brains will never allow that. That's not what they signed up for Magic the Gathering and the format of Commander for. They're here to play Commander. And so you can't do this in an if you pull this on unsuspecting people, it does hurt the experience because of these constructs in their mind.
Yeah, I guess you're really just seeing the clash of like the fan-made format when it's now overtaken / overseen by, corporate entity, right?
Indeed.
I guess that's the consequence of that. But it does help in a way standardize it and make it more popular, which could be a net benefit overall. But then you have stuff like this happening, and I wasn't even really thinking about it in the context. Like if you have like 10 of these for 10 different decks, you got hosed. It's rough.
Yeah, I think I lost personally. I haven't added it fully up, but I think I lost personally between like extra special printings and things like that. I think I'm down about $2,000.
Good. Great.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. I think that's where that's where I'm at on this one. It's like, well, that feels weird. The thing is, I'm actually like, I don't need sympathy in the comments. It's okay. I basically collected these to collect them. I actually wasn't planning to sell them. So really, it's like a mental construct, because if I never sold them, I would never know the difference, right?
To be fair, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Wizards is kind of removed from all of that, right? At the end, like, yes, sure, they do have, oversight and they have a lot of info when it comes to this stuff, but it doesn't damage the bottom line for them directly. It's more indirectly, because now people lose a lot of confidence in the game, and if their stuff is going to maintain value, which then potentially hurts like future purchases and stuff. And I think, again, not to sound like a broken record, but similar to Yu-Gi-Oh, like we're used to that. It's not really anything new to us.
You're right, except if Wizards does have some of these cards as their chase extra special printings in upcoming sets, which is why it's conspiracy theories. That's why it's really interesting to watch what the releases are for the next year and just how much was shared, how much heads up did they get, because pulling cards out of upcoming products is not easy. A lot of these card files are sent and getting printed so far in advance. So yeah, it's going to be something.
Prediction time. Get ready to see Ruby Lotus, Sapphire Lotus, Emerald Lotus, Jet Lotus. Just wait.
No.
I'll call it here. I'll call it here. You're going to get the Mox Lotuses. Just you wait. Just you wait.
Oh, God, no. All right. We've definitely had a good time with this. I'm going to make the last one pretty tricky. I'm actually going to give you 3 cards, and you're going to pick 1 that was banned and 2 that were not.
Okay.
All right. Here's the first card.
All right. This is the first not artifact, which it'll probably tell me it's maybe not banned for that reason. Creature Merfolk Wizard. When blank enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. What is devotion to blue?
It explains it at the bottom in the parentheses.
Okay.
But you may still have more questions. I'll answer them then.
Got it. Put up to 1 of them on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. Ooh, alt win condition. Okay. Each blue in the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to blue. Interesting. All right. What's
this card,
and this costs 2 blue. It costs 2 blue.
On its own, since it is a creature, which is a permanent, it offers you 2 devotion to blue on its own.
Sure. Okay. So at bare minimum, you get to do 2.
Let's talk about just briefly. Like, let me know if you think it's a good card, and then I'll show you the next card.
So this is interesting because alt win cons in Yu-Gi-Oh don't really exist. They do, obviously. They print them very rarely now, I would say. But they're usually just, aside from your stereotypical Exodia, it's funny because Exodia is honestly probably the most viable alt win con in Yu-Gi-Oh! The rest are just so bad because they're almost impossible to actually achieve. They put so many stipulations on them. And I think they have to because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just a crazy game. So it's kind of fun to get to like evaluate a card like this because like I don't know if this is, I don't know if how common these types of things are in Magic, but so it enters the battlefield. Let's just say your devotion to blue is 2. So you look at the top 2, put 1 in your hand, or no, put 1 on the top of your library, the rest on the bottom. Okay, so you don't get any card economy there. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library. If X, so let's say 2, if 2 is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So, greater than or equal to. So, best case scenario is you mill your whole deck, and then you play this, and then you win. Is that how I'm seeing this? Is that correct?
That is probably the more common application of the card than scrying 2, yes.
All right, well, if there's enough outlets to just mill your whole deck and win, that seems pretty damn good to me.
I will give you the same advantage I gave another creator on this channel and show you this card.
Okay. Demonic Consultation. Cool art. 1 black, instant. Name a card. Remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game. I'm assuming that's exiling.
Yep.
Okay. Then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal the named card. Put that card into your hand and remove all other cards revealed this way from the game. Okay. All right.
Yeah. You get the rub. You can name Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah. Now you can't anymore.
No, you can. That's the point. That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
You can name any card. It doesn't have to be in your deck.
Doesn't stop you. That's true.
Yeah, that can be 1 mana instant. Remove your deck from the game.
All right, well, let's see what else we're working with. That seems very busted, though.
3 mana, win a game of Commander.
Legendary artifacts, not a regular artifact. Legendary. Indestructible. Okay. That just means it can't be destroyed by anything, right?
Yep. Things that say destroy all this don't destroy it.
But it can be targeted still, correct?
It can be.
Yeah, just not destroyed.
Yep.
When blank enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. Whoa, okay. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on blank. Okay, burden counter, that's funny. And then tap it, put a burden counter on blank, then draw a card for each burden counter on blank. How much does this cost? 4? Ugh. That sounds expensive.
Your reaction to the first 4 mana card of the day.
I mean, considering everything else you showed me, I think that's justified. Like, for 4 mana, this card better win me the game. And on the surface, I'm not seeing it, but obviously I don't know this game that well.
It doesn't lose you the game.
It protects you, of course. You can't lose. When it enters the battlefield, gain protection from everything until your next turn. When it says until your next turn, I'm assuming that means like the start of your next turn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to clarify that. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life for each burden counter. Put a burden counter on this. Draw a card for each burden counter. This seems like the protection from everything is fine. It doesn't have like, what do you call your instant speed stuff? Flash? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It doesn't have flash, so like
Nope.
you'd have to find a way to flash it in if you want. Well, you could just play it and then you're just like not going to die for a turn. You don't have to flash it in necessarily. I'm trying. This is my Yu-Gi-Oh brain. Like if it's not like instant, it's probably bad most of the time.
It's a really it would be really good with Flash. I'll give it that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this makes it so you don't die. I'm pretty sure that was good in Hearthstone from when we've done stuff with Rare in. So I could see that being okay, especially if this is Commander, because that's like 3 turns that other people get potentially as well. Okay. And then you just get to draw cards with this. Okay. This is probably the least impressive thing I've seen that you've shown me so far.
Okay.
So I think of these 2, I'm leaning towards the first thing you showed me of being banned.
Okay. I'll show you one more.
Okay. All right. When blank enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. And then treasure tokens just tap to add a mana. And it's a 1/2. I think that's better than the other one. I don't know if it's better than the first card. Oh, what does this cost? 1 and a red. Okay, so it also costs 2. We like that. It's not free, but it's cheap. And technically it's free because it kind of like replaces its cost in a way. Artifacts and enchantments your opponent control. Soul Ring's an artifact, right?
It is.
Soul Ring's an artifact. Mana Crypt's an artifact. Mana Vault's an artifact. Jeweled Lotus is an artifact. Okay, I could see this being very good. But the only thing I hesitate with, we know getting free mana is good. The only thing, it's opponent controls. I don't like that it's reliant on your opponent, because there's multiple. It's Commander. I have to remember that for this video. It is reliant on them having artifacts. I don't, it's hard for me to say whether or not like low, it doesn't have to be low value enchantment. If you play this, let's say mid game, it's probably not unlikely that there is like some number of soul rings, maybe some number of mana, before Mana Vault got banned, right? There may have been some number of mana vaults. There might be some number of other artifacts that like do things to get you mana or do other things. So in the early stages, this card, depending on like how quickly people can ramp up with artifacts and such, like in the early on, this could potentially be good, but it also is just heavily dependent on the way the game's going and how many artifacts people are playing. So this could also just do nothing.
And
I don't know, like,
enchantments.
it is enchantments too, but I feel like enchantments are harder for me to evaluate. And I feel like, honestly, enchantments are probably rarer than artifacts. But I could be wrong. I feel like you've maybe shown me like one enchantment ever in the videos that we've done here. I feel like the high end...
I feel like my personal biases might be getting pointed out, and I will have to adjust and do better in the future.
I feel like the top end for this card could be crazy because like in the best case scenario, right? Each opponent has like, let's say 2 or 3 artifacts and or enchantments out. So that would be 6 to 9 treasure tokens that you get, which is basically like ramping 6 to 9 mana.
That's pretty good.
That's really
pretty good. That's really good.
You're paying 2 to do it, so it's like you're netting 7. And it seems like the philosophy for the bans has been mana acceleration early on, sort of snowballing into games just being non-games. Or are you showing me this?
They've mentioned twice 5 mana on turn 2. Do you think that this does that?
5 mana on turn 2. So you would have to pay 2 to play this. So on average, your opponents would have to have 1 to 2 artifacts in play on turn 2 to do that. I guess it really just depends on like how many artifacts people are playing. Like you've shown me obviously some of the best, and like maybe there are some that are also good enough that you play them anyway because they also just over time accrue value, but like maybe they're just not this good, right? Like they're not the Mana Crypt or the Soul Ring. They're not the cream of the crop.
Yeah, Mana Crypt and Soul Ring are very S tier, and then like Mana Vault I think is a tier below that. There are not that many things similar to Mana Vault either, so they start taking a big step down really fast.
Okay, so they're more like C tier.
They're still popular. I'm not saying they're not popular.
Sure,
I won't lie to you, but I'm saying you're not going to see a lot of games with like 3 to 4 1 or 0 mana artifacts in them. It's not that common.
I think I've ruled out the legendary artifact you showed me. That just doesn't seem as well. It's generic, and like I'm sure this card's probably fine because you get to draw a card like every turn with it. I'm sure that's okay. I'm not saying it's like bad. You said all these cards are good. But I think the card just that like interests me the most is this first creature because like okay, we're talking about like ramping up super quickly. If you're able to ramp up super quickly in an early turn and then pull off this combo with this card to like win the game immediately, that's not fun, right? And like obviously with this being a more casual skewed format, people want to have fun. So I could see them banning that just because that play pattern sucks, but it also was like a blue card. So, like, maybe because it's only for, like, decks that play blue, maybe it's not as bad. I don't know. I'm tempted to go for this Goblin Pirate just because the theme, it seems to be, has been, like, mana ramping, and that being the issue. So it's like, do they want to hit that because it's also in line with that same philosophy, even though they didn't hit Soul Ring, or did they hit this other card because it is just... I can't wait for you to tell me that the you win the game card is just bad, and you just threw this in here just to mess with me.
I promise you, I'm not messing with you this time. None of these cards are bad.
Okay.
These are very popular cards, every single one of them.
This time, everyone. He said this time. Remember that.
I messed up once.
Sure.
It wasn't on purpose. Okay.
I'm going to stick with my gut here. I think the blue card's cool, not like in the sense that like it's cool because it's like I could see this actually being a feasible win condition. And I feel like as someone who comes from a game that doesn't have feasible alt win conditions, I can appreciate that. This card's probably like loathed by everyone. I could see it. But I think because the theme of this video has been the mana ramping issue, I think my gut's saying that this is probably the outlier. If this like legendary artifact thing just like gave you extra mana for like every burden counter on it, like then maybe that would be it. But I think I'm going to go with this. It's weird that it's not like generic. So like maybe just any deck that plays red just gets to take advantage of this card. And that's kind of the reason I'm like leaning against it. But if the theme of everything we've been talking about is just blatant abusive mana ramp, even though it's all vibes based because they just ban whatever they feel like it, you know what? Sure, let's go with the red guy. I think that's in line with everything else so far. So red Goblin Pirate banned, other two not. Final answer.
Okay. So the first card is Thassa's Oracle. I'll show you Thassa's Oracle here. Thassa's Oracle.
Oh, this art's cool too.
No, yeah. So it's so much better with the art, right? Thassa's Oracle is brought up often in Commander because with the combo of Demonic Consultation, as well as with other cards like Hermit Druid, Tainted Pact, like there's a number of ways to exile your deck. And it is possible with the right draw to do this on turn one. Just Thassa's Oracle, exile your deck, win the game. And it's hard to interact with because it's like a triggered ability.
One.
Yeah. Well, that also. Not everything's free in our game.
Not everything's free.
So.
I was going to say, our turn one, we can interact with a lot. So it's a much different experience.
Yep. So Thassa's Oracle is often brought up as like the most abusable, blatant win con, used the most in CEDH, very commonly. Yep.
Okay, so this is like the competitive
in CEDH,
staple.
They do it a lot. Oh, yeah. And
maybe to get into that format. That sounds fun.
They didn't ban it. That sounds good. Just lose the game on turn one. I guess Yu-Gi-Oh players will be at home.
We're used to that. Yeah, I feel right at home.
Yeah, Thassa's Oracle is still not banned. I remember when this card was previewed, people in CEDH were like really hoping it would be banned, knew it would take over and be the best thing, and it's often considered the best thing. The cleanest, fastest way to straight up end a game without dealing a point of damage. Do people loathe this card,
or is it like fine?
A lot of people hate it. Okay. A lot of people hate it. I think that if you play CEDH, if you hate Thassa's Oracle, you've probably been weeded out of the format by now because it's so common. But I mean, let me know in the comments. Do you play CEDH and also hate Thassa's Oracle? I'm curious because to me, it's one of the things keeping me out of that format is I don't need to ever see this happen again. It's totally unnecessary for me.
Makes sense.
So that's that. All right. The second card is the One Ring. To rule them all.
Okay.
Yeah, way better with the art, right?
Yeah,
That's
way better.
the burden counter. You see that?
Yeah.
This is the card. I can't believe it. This is the card that the most people have been asking me about getting banned. This is the one.
Really?
Yeah, that everybody seems like so many people seem to think this should be banned. There's been a lot of discourse on it, and I honestly think it's bleed over from Modern. The price has continued to go up.
Okay.
It started around like $40 when the set was new and quickly got to like $80. Now I believe it's over $100. Let's do a quick check. But yeah, the card has continued to climb, and with the latest like announcements has continued to climb. Yeah, hovering a non-foil version hovering around like $112.
What makes this so good?
In good condition. It is very good. I think I'm with you that it's not as good as the other things, but the protection from everything kind of guarantees you get another turn.
Sure.
Tapping it to draw a card replaces itself. Then tapping it the very next time you tap it, you've drawn 3 cards, having lost 1 life and had a whole turn of protection from everything your opponents can throw at you. From that point on, assuming that you do that and the game continues, it gets even crazier because once you're like tapping it for 4 cards or for 3 cards, you're at like 6 cards drawn. You tap it for 4, you're at 10.
Sure.
That part is all pretty obvious, and you do it as you go around the table. When you combine this with something that untaps all of your stuff or untaps an artifact every turn, such as a Seedborn Muse is a card, Unwinding Clock is a card, like then this card starts to actually just draw your deck and take over games in that sense. And in 1v1 formats like Modern, the One Ring has been a super powerful card that has, and I think that in that format where you can play 4 copies of the One Ring, I think people are frustrated by its generic can be in every deck viability, and I think you're seeing bleed of the frustration with the One Ring in Modern into Commander. There are some content creators that also are like I'm not playing the One Ring, and it could go in every deck, so we're not playing it on our show. And I think that lends itself to people thinking that if people have that attitude, it must be busted. I could play the One Ring in all my decks. I don't. I think that there's a lot of 4-mana cards that create card advantage. They might not all be as good as the One Ring, but they fit my deck better. I use the One Ring in my Lord of the Rings decks, but I don't feel a need to put a One Ring in my dinosaur deck because it's not a I'd rather be casting a dinosaur for 4 mana. I really think the 4 mana is the important part. Like you kind of nailed that too. There's a lot of competition at 4 mana to do something cool. There's a lot of other cool things you can do.
Well, so for context, like this card reminds, I don't know if I showed you this card. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh card called Time Tearing Morganite. It's not exactly this, but for context, the Magic equivalent of this would be it's free, so it costs 0. You play it. It's not an artifact, but it's a card that you play and you just get an effect. It's a sorcery you would play that you get this effect for the rest of the game. And it's draw 2 cards every draw phase for the rest of the game. And the normal summon, which is the big limiter in Yu-Gi-Oh, we only get 1 of those. You're allowed to do 2 of those per turn instead of 1 for the rest of the game. And that card sees basically 0 play. So, like, that to me is, like, you know, kind of it's not exactly the same. Like, the One Ring gives you protection. You know, there's some other things going on with this, obviously. But, you know, coming where we come from, something like that's just, like, unplayable for most decks for the most part for us. So you telling me that this is, like, one of the best cards in, like, Commander and Modern is, like, it's like I can understand it because that card just on the paper seems cracked, but I think that's just how different our games are. That, like, if they printed this in Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't think it would be good, as crazy as that is to say.
So what I heard from a thumbnail maker perspective is the One Ring is unplayable. That's
there you
what
go.
I got.
There's your thumbnail. There's your thumbnail.
We did it. All right. And I mean, of course, that brings around us to the last card, which means you got this right because the One Ring was not banned. The Dockside Extortionist is the banned card.
This guy looks goofy.
And this is oh God, I should show you the other art, actually. It's fun. The original art from the first printing of this card. Like Jeweled Lotus, this card was printed and made in a Commander set for the Commander format, which is kind of a theme in this ban.
I've noticed.
This is another card designed for Commander. Is that not nice? I love that art too. Yeah,
that's fun.
So, yeah.
I like that one better. This one's better.
Yeah, this little goblin guy. Not uncommon to come down and generate crazy amounts of mana. 7, 10, not unusual. 20 could happen. Like, it's especially when multiple people run this card, because you play a Dockside, maybe you make 7 treasures, the next person makes 14 if you don't.
Oh my God, because they count. I didn't even
away.
Think about that. That's crazy.
In both the competitive meta and the high power meta, Dockside has created like kind of its own ecosystem of people play their mana rocks more carefully because they don't want to, quote, feed the Dockside, is a saying. A lot of people run clones just to copy opponents' Docksides, right?
That's awesome, though. Like, I think that's cool.
It is cool. So let's see why did they ban this Whittle Goblin friend of ours? I'm gonna have you read the reasoning.
And it's probably the same reason as the rest. All right, Dockside Extortionist isn't normally quite as explosive in the early game as the other 2 cards, but it can still go mana positive on turn 2 and start generating substantial treasures after that. It's been on the border for years, and we shied away from acting in the past because the card has scaled well with the power level of the table, but it's a frequent contributor to the more egregious snowballing starts. I will say, like, out of all the cards you've showed me, like, yes, over time, you know, the Soul Rings, the mana crypts, you know, they generate all this mana, but, like, Dockside's, like, ceiling seems, like, insane. Like you said, the fact you can just generate, like, 14 mana in a single turn just seems nuts. So, and then it just snowballs from there, right? So, yeah.
On the enchantments note, in casual, enchantment decks are very popular. There are several commanders. There's like Enchantress is its own archetype where you just play a ton of enchantments. So in casual against enchantment decks, Dockside can often be based from one player, 10 mana alone.
Wow.
And there are so many loops because it's a creature. You can copy it, you can reanimate it, you can blink it, you can return it to your hand and play it again. There are so many ways to go infinite with Dockside. It has determined the outcome of so many games and now is banned in Commander. So what do you think this card's price was last week? And then we'll say, what is it today?
Let me think. What was... Yeah, this is tough. It's also weird because it's like less generic because it does require a red mana. Not that I feel like that's too difficult to play. Here's a weird question. Can you play a dual land of a... Let's say you're playing a... For argument's sake, let's just say you're playing a white commander. Can you play a dual land that also can tap for red? in that deck.
Nope.
Okay.
Not if there isn't a red symbol somewhere on your commander.
Okay.
And you can't play a red card in the deck either.
That's what I was curious, because after learning like all this stuff with the dual lands, it would make sense that like, oh, if your dual lands just happen to tap for red, if you're not playing a red commander, then this obviously gets even better in that case. But no, so you do have to be playing some degree of red in the commander somewhere for this to be played. I think that could potentially hurt like how much this is, but if this is, especially if like CEDH2, like being like a super competitive card, I'm sure all these cards are super competitive though. So it only had 2 printings, you're telling me?
So Dockside Extortionist was printed in Commander 2019 as a rare, which was a Commander-only premium release. And then it was printed in what I would say the slightly more premium release of Double Masters as a mythic in 2022.
So only 2 printings, though. That could definitely... So honestly, like kind of the least amount of printings of all these, it seems like.
They are big sets. They're sets that like sold a lot, but yeah, premium sets, mythic spot in a premium set is still pretty rare.
Number of printings, that's what I meant.
Yep.
I could see this being like $100, especially because of all the value it provides. But again, I feel like the price is hurt just a bit because of the fact that there is a whole host of decks that just can't play this. It's not an artifact. So I feel like that would almost bring the price down just slightly. So like I could see this being 90. So I'll go with 90.
The high sale price was $95.99. Good job.
Ooh, okay.
And what do you think the low is?
Oh, geez. Now?
Now that the bans have happened, what's the low sale price?
It's probably similar to like the other ones. What are we going? We've been going down like 60-ish%. Sure, we'll go like $30.
$20.
Oh, wow. That one got hurt the most. Oof.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like because it's not an artifact that could go in every deck, I think that Dockside, I think that the mental attachment to Dockside outside of CEDH, because the CEDH fans will lose their mind on this one. This is the one that drove them the craziest. I would say the casual fan is least attached to Dockside, because it does seem just kind of like blatantly like when it pops hard and the game's over, as opposed to like their Mana Crypt and their Jeweled Lotus that help them cast their Avacyn or like whatever their favorite story character is. Or maybe they built their goofy Mimi deck with a silly commander and Jeweled Lotus helped them cast down turn 1 once and everybody freaked out, right? Like Dockside is a little bit different. Dockside comes down and it's like, well, now you have all this mana and the game's kind of over, is how Dockside seems to play a lot of times. Or the flip side is Dockside comes down and does nothing because nobody played a deck that worked with it in casual, right?
Dockside's just holding everyone's money in that little pouch and just smiling as everyone lost all their money on him, unfortunately.
Oh God. In CEDH, this is the one that has people losing it, saying the format is dead. Like if you see a CEDH if you see a CEDH player saying Magic is over, it's because of Dockside most likely.
The amount of times we've heard that in any, just like calm down, it's fine.
The kind of starts I kind of alluded to that I said are not very common are where they do happen is CEDH, where people are like turn 1, land, Mana Crypt, another artifact that makes mana, another artifact or enchantment that provides value, go. Next person, same-ish start. Next person, tutor up one of those pieces, same-ish start. Last person goes, Dockside, make 10 mana, start a loop, win the game. Like those, Dockside is a very real like win con in CEDH, and they are very sad. They are very sad pandas.
Sure,
like entire decks, they feel like entire decks have died, and I don't think they're wrong. Some decks have been hurt really bad by this. They really did get to a point where they had enough tutors, because this is a creature, to go find it consistently, that they could build a deck around winning with Dockside, and it worked. So they are suffering.
The ban list giveth, the ban list taketh away. They will live to see another day. They will live to see another day.
Dude, Yu-Gi-Oh players, they're just absolutely hardened. You're like
Wait,
just zen.
I know. I feel like I'm just so stoic throughout all of this, and you're wanting like bigger reactions, but it's just like we're used to this. Like
trust me. We got all the big reactions we need. I think. I think a little levity and like it's it's a game and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
is fine. And if they're still here watching after this, after all this video, you know what? I think sending them out on a positive is perfectly fine.
I think that at the end of the day, people get incredibly emotionally attached to these cards. Also, there's the financial component too, right? I'm not like wanting to discredit that, but it's people love the game that they're playing and they love Commander in this case. And so to see so much of the effort and everything they've dedicated into it just sort of like vanish and dissipate overnight over a simple decision like this, like it sucks. It sucks. And then not to mention that if, you were talking about the stories of the people who saved up, just to buy their first Mana Crypt or things like that. Yeah, it's awful. It's terrible. But at the end of the day, the card games are a business, and so we are always at the mercy of these companies. And unfortunately, it's like stuff like this happens, and it's out of your control at times. I want to like end on like a more positive note, but it's kind of just the ebb and flow of card games at the end of the day, I feel like.
I'll wrap this one by saying what I said on live stream, because not everybody will watch that live stream. I think these bans are good for the health of the format, because I think it's a good thing to ban cards that, like, Commander was a fan format, and Wizards decided they realized there was a lot of money in that format, and they made cards specifically for that format that are absurdly broken, and then printed them at rare and mythic levels, right? And only in premium products to sell those products, which drove the price up pretty high. And they could have put Jeweled Lotus in precons. Like, it's a thing they could do, but they never would, like you said. And I think that these saying no to cards that are that insanely busted that they should be in every deck but aren't getting the reprint treatment that would be needed to actually be able to afford them for every deck, I think that saying that we're willing to ban those cards is a good thing in the long term.
I think so too.
But because it went unchecked for a few years, it got to this point where these cards are expensive and they felt safe. And that is why this hurts so badly. But I think for the future of the game, the pain today, I think we'll be happy that future players, hopefully, will not have to go through this cycle of feeling like they have to save up and buy a Mana Crypt. Hopefully that we're not just printing mythics that in these premium products that are so busted they should be in every Commander deck.
I also think, too, months from now, people are, this is all just going to blow over. That's usually what happens. I'm just like, Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's what happens. Stuff like this happens. We all just like yap about it for a week, and then it's fine. It's just business as usual. Everyone back to playing Commander. No one's going anywhere. We're all sickly addicted to our cardboard crack.
Oh, God. Leave me a comment 2 months from now if this didn't blow over for you.